All right, folks, welcome to the Common Sense Conservative podcast. As I said earlier, I'm trying to convert this into not just audio form, but visual form and uh, getting live video and putting it up onto the YouTube channel. So I'm still learning and playing. Yes, I'm at home. Yes, I have my kitchen window behind me. I'm working out all the kinks before I actually move to studio. But so today I'm trying headphones and a new external speaker, and I'm running everything off of the laptop, which gives me a whole dashboard on the platform that I'm using to, you know, do this. So, and other things. So it's kind of fun. But today's podcast, I want to talk about a topic that is really hot and heavy right now as the Idaho State Legislature gets prepared to come into session, and that is, and I'm going to use the code words that are out there, and that's school freedom and school choice. So, what I have learned over the last couple years of campaigning unsuccessfully and being in the political realm is uh, marketing and using certain terms that actually grab people and make them think that they're getting, some sort of liberty. Okay, so that's another term that gets used is liberty, and so you have medical freedom, you have school freedom, um, education freedom, etc. So these are all what I see as just dog whistles or catchphrases that allow people to um, push a blank message. Everybody wants freedom, right? Everybody loves liberty. So that allows you to draw your audience in and captivate them whenever you use the word freedom. I don't know how many times during my campaigns I heard, well, what, you don't like freedom? Of course, I like freedom. I fought for it. I actually went to combat for it. I didn't sit on a couch. So, yeah, kind of like freedom, but I don't dog whistle. But today's topic is really going to be about school freedom and school choice. And if you listen back in my podcast, I've had these conversations with many, many people because I want to try to figure out what is right and what is wrong. And I've listened to all sides of the factions. Here's what I will tell you from my experiences, I have had face-to-face conversations with school teachers, and I have had face-to-face conversations with school superintendents and superintendents of public instruction. So, I don't just hear from, internet experts. I've actually heard from the people that are doing the job. And so I have my own opinions. But so right now in Idaho, we're arguing over whether or not a certain group of individuals. I think they're probably going to call themselves the Liberty Caucus or something, and they're basically being financially backed by political action committee. It's external forces that are helping putting these things together. So, and I'm going to have a whole podcast on all of them. I'm going to kind of break them down a little bit and talk about them. I think it's an interesting subject, and I kind of want to dive into them a little bit more so you can kind of see who really is pulling the strings for most of this for the legislature. But so they're talking about it. It was a voucher system, and that's where taxpayer money is taken and given to parents, give them a voucher to spend X amount of dollars for their individual child, for their student, to go learn wherever they want. And that being, online through homeschooling or charter schooling or private school. And so, where the issue has always arisen is that in private schooling, most of those are parochial, meaning that there is religious based training or learning involved in those, and which I have zero problem with. You know, uh, we've got BK Knights, and that is a a parochial school. It's a private institution. They don't take state money. Uh, Parents pay a tuition. There's a long line to get in. It's a very successful school. It's a good school. And children come out of there being taught very well. So I don't have a problem with the idea of that, but they don't take state funding. Therefore, their curriculum is set for them. Where there are some gray area is, and it changes based on who you talk to. The Idaho Constitution talks about, keeping religion separate from public education. So there are some lines in there that are very, some sides say they're very firm and other sides say they're very gray. I imagine that if something goes through, it'll probably end up at the Supreme Court to decide. The Idaho Supreme Court will decide this. But so the bottom line is that, the new, what is being called the far right legislators, they're not far right. They're just libertarian. So it is, I'm just calling it what it is. They are libertarians. They called themselves, or quietly called themselves libertarian for probably 3 years until it became unpalatable. And then they morphed into the GOP, fractured it, and now they are basically in control, which again, the voters put them in. So that's kind of the way, the ebb and flow of politics works. But so these Liberty Caucus folks are going to probably push for a voucher system. Now, the word voucher has become extremely unpopular of late. So they're starting to change again. They're very good at changing the dog whistle word. So now we're going from voucher over into basically a school savings account. And potato, it's all the same. It is really allocating or redistributing taxpayer money from all of us to allow parents to then spend money at a private school. And again, I don't know that that's the end of the world. I have tried to forecast in the future as a business owner, you try to forecast what's going to be, what decisions you make now and how they'll look in the future. And I do believe, there's probably some pros and cons to it. And I do think all things considered, it's probably not going to work out. And it might be, 60-40 that it's not, somewhere in that ballpark. I just don't know that I think there has to be some constitutional changes, et cetera, in order for it to truly happen. But then again, I very well could be wrong on that. I don't know that it's the end of the world. And again, they say that if you don't try, you'll never know. What I was always looking at was the motive is why has this been such a big push? And if you follow social media, you'll see a constant barrage of incidences where schools are doing this and teachers are indoctrinating and teachers are doing this. And yet none of those are from Idaho. And I have personally, in all my interactions on social media and everywhere, I have yet to see indoctrination take place in Idaho. And I have no facts. And if it was factual, I would move to crush it hard, like the flow of drugs into Idaho. That is factual. The flow of gangs into Idaho is factual. It needs to be crushed. And if there really is indoctrination going on in our schools, it would need to be crushed. Do I think that, let me back up. I was told by a superintendent in a school district that school districts mimic, the community. And I think that is very apropos. It's perfect because communities are different. Downtown Caldwell and Caldwell School District and Valley View School District is different than my Middleton School District. It is. We're more rural and more agricultural related and farming and et cetera, with now a mix of city and California. So we are changing, but the face of things are changing. But nonetheless, those school districts mirror the community. And I can tell you that my community would never stand for that kind of indoctrination that I see on social media. And I always ask, is this Idaho? ? And the answer that I get back is crickets. They don't answer back, number one. But two, when you research the articles they put up, it is never Idaho. I have not seen anything from Idaho. I really haven't. And I look, I really want to know. but I've yet to see any of this indoctrination take place in Idaho. So there are probably, I would be naive to say that there are not teachers who would love to sway the conversation one way or the other, because there certainly is. And I can tell you that there are teachers who would like to, potentially sway the conversation to the right also. So I think it's probably an even mix. That's for administrators and school board to manage and take care of. So, but all of this emotion and this freedom has spurred this idea that if we take money from everybody and give it to those who can put their children in private school. Now, understand, private school, there's no busing that I know of. Like, you have to drop your kids off at Bishop Kelly, and there may be busing for charter schools, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I think you actually have to get your child. So you start to eliminate segments of the population when you say, how are you going to get your kid to this private school? How are you going to get your kid to this school over here that I want to be in? So I do think that it starts to chop down and eliminate certain segments of the population. And then if you're in the boonies of Idaho, is there a private school in Idaho City or Riggins? I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking. I'm telling you, there's not. So those kids, now parents would have to travel them down to Boise School District in Idaho City in order for them to work. Or in Riggins, they got to go up the hill to wherever to get to a private school, and the parents have to take them. So, and in today's economy, I would say that 90% of parents both work. So I see the problems wrought in it. And then I also see the problems of, who's going to run these schools. So in the past, I know that, Senator Nichols, who I've lost to multiple times, obviously I'm not the candidate that people want, and she is. But her family has a long history of being in the private school business, most of it unsuccessful. It is still a business, and it needs to be ran correctly. And even as of today, someone who was a past candidate of, for superintendent of public instruction, Brandon Durst, has now basically put on Twitter that he's filing articles of incorporation to start a private school, and one of biblical background, basing it off of Hillsdale. And Hillsdale has some great courses. I've taken quite a few of them. So this leads me to my predictions. And I don't even know how far back I predicted this, but as soon as I saw the push toward private school, and I did the research on Senator Nichols and her family in the private school industry, and then Brandon Durst now coming out and saying that he's going to incorporate and start a school. Basically, to me, that's motive. And I called that motive out many, many years ago. And I said, there has to be a motive as to why, there was a motive as to why they were trying to fracture and separate the Republican Party. They were successful at it. And I think the long-term effects will be seen very shortly, because I think that faction will degrade the Republican base and shift it other places. I also believe that the motive behind moving into private school with public money, so that's redistribution, is as simple as you can put it. They're taking everybody's money and putting it over to these guys, to only those that have the ability to drive their children to these private schools, and then pay the balance of the tuition. So it does limit the population. The majority of the kids in Middleton and or any school that I can think of, when I coached softball for Middleton High School, and I played other schools, I can't imagine a ton of those children being able to have parents that can drive them to school every day, etc., and then pay the balance of the tuition. So, but we go back to motive, and that motive simply is capitalism. It is financial. And so there is absolutely, I'll be curious to see articles of incorporation on that business and to see who the officers are. I actually thought that the Idaho Freedom Foundation would work their way into private schooling to be able to collect those, theoretically, everybody pays taxes to the school district. So theoretically, everybody's putting money in there, and theoretically, every parent can take out whatever number they're coming up with, $8,000-9,000 to use for their kid. So it could be millions upon millions of dollars that gets redistributed from here to here. So that's bottom line. That's basic business 101. But that is redistribution. So the motive then would be who's receiving the redistribution and who's in charge of that redistribution over here. And as of right now, Brandon Durst is coming right out and saying that he wants to be the guy that receives a majority of that money. So there is your motive. And, I got to say, when I ran for office, my only motive was just to do the right thing. I didn't need the financial money. I was planning on donating the salary because it's chump change salary, even though the majority of the new legislators coming in, that's probably the only income that they actually make. And they have very little paper thin resumes of business experience, but it is what it is. So redistribution is really what I'm calling the voucher saving system. I don't care what you want to call it. The bottom line is it's redistribution of money. And and I always thought that was kind of against the Republican platform. That was more of a Democratic platform where redistribution of wealth. So, but whatever. What do I know? I'm just a losing candidate. So here's what I say on this. If it's going to go through, I think it should go to the vote of people. I think it should be put forward in a way that every Idahoan has the ability to vote on it. That's what I think should happen. And therefore, if Idaho says yes, then it's yes. If Idaho says no, then it's no. But when you have legislators, and yes, the legislators are ideally meant to represent their constituents, but I don't feel that is going to happen. I don't feel that has really ever happened. Once elected, they kind of have the fuck you attitude that they can do whatever they want. And I have seen that here simply on social media and Twitter with many of the newly elected. The fuck you attitude is there. They could care less. They know they've got a few years to do whatever they want, and they're going to do it. And so I don't think there's a lot of feedback coming from the constituents. And if there is, it's paper thin. I would like to see a survey conducted by every superintendent for every school district in Idaho. They can do it because they're in contact with their children's parents. Back and forth. We get surveys all the time from Middleton School District. I do, and I fill them out. And you'll see that the rate of filling those things out are very low. Most parents don't engage, but nonetheless, I would like to see every single Middleton or every single superintendent of a school district send out a simple, are you for this or are you against it? No trick questions, no nothing, straightforward. Let's take that information, compile it. I don't give a shit what Arizona did or any other state, could care less. Idaho issues, Idaho solutions. Let's see what the majority of parents from each district around the state say, and then see where that falls, and then put it forward to a vote. If they're going to do it, put it in front of the voters of the state of Idaho. Because I have a feeling the numbers will drastically change if we do that. And right now, there probably is enough push or juice in the Senate and the House to make it happen. And again, voters voted for it. And, but the problem is that people see the tree right now and they cut it down and say, hey, I need firewood this winter, but they never plant a tree for the following years. And so winter number 2 and 3, they're cold. They don't have any firewood, meaning that, the right now is what we're looking at, but we're not looking at what could happen in the future. And what would we do to reverse this, or when would we stop it? Typically, I always said when I was running for office, if I was going to institute any type of changes, I would maybe drastic changes, I would sunset it, meaning it would start here and end here, simply so I could get a feel for it. And then once we reach sunset, we could renew it. So to just simply see that it was a good project or it wasn't. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think legislators are going to push it through, because it's freedom and it's choice and it's liberty. So is what it is. I have a child. I only have 1 year left in schooling, so I'll be paying for pitching in for everybody else to go to private school. And if that's what the people of Idaho want, that's what the people of Idaho should get. So that's where I stand on all that. I will just say that I told you so. I predicted that there was an economic and monetary prize or motive in there, and I was pretty damn right. So thanks, Brandon Durst, for posting that. Appreciate it. School security. I've made it known that I am a proponent of armed school security officers and not armed teachers. And that is because I have a background in gunfighting. I have been in gunfights from 5.5 feet to, 900,000 yards. I've been in that situation a fair amount. And I know that it takes more than just a teacher mindset to do that job. It takes more than just marksmanship. So there are many, many. Do we not think that the police officers at Uvalde who did not go down the hallway for an hour and 14, 17 minutes, do we not think that they were trained or whatever, trained for it? And yet no one went down the hallway and opened the door and killed the bad guy. So I think arming teachers is fluff. I think in certain communities where you would not be able to get qualified security guards, security officers, then I think that may be an option. But I think for the majority of our schools, armed, trained security officers, I wrote a book on it. I'll plug it. How much are our children worth? Okay. And this book really focuses on, the politics of money and why your children are not protected. And I believe that I also set the parameters on what a professional security company providing armed security should look like to a school district. And so while legislators are beating up Idaho public schools and, talking about, I've seen everything from defunding to you name it. I would like to see them focus some effort on protecting our children and money for private security and, professional, exceptional level, like better trained than police officers at doing one job, and that's finding the bad guy and solving the problem. And that comes in many, many different facets, as I write about in my book. So, yes, I own a security company. Yes, I would be willing to teach, train, and provide armed security officers. So that can be right out in the public. I don't really care who sees that. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm also not trying to make any money on it. I'm just simply trying to get my children protected, the children of Idaho protected. And so armed professional school security officers. I write about it in my book, tell you how to do it. I tell you what the parameters are, what the requirements should be for a professional security officer. And that's what needs to happen. That money needs to be allocated, and that money can come from the state level. It absolutely can. So I would love to see legislators focus on that while they're chopping up money for their own pockets. Let's focus on security. And I'm more than happy to go through the numbers of the proposal that I have submitted to school districts for this and break down by the dollar. It's completely transparent. I could care less. So the second thing I'd like to see them fund is career technical education, CTE. So while they're beating the death out of public schools and wanting to go the biblical route, yes, understanding and knowing about the Bible is important in young children's lives. I don't necessarily know that is, truly where public school lies. I can see the problems inherent in that, and that's why there are verbiage in the Idaho Constitution preventing it. But what is not written in the Idaho Constitution to limit or exclude is career technical education. So, yes, having a class on the Bible in a private school would be great. How about a welding class? How about a plumbing class? How about an electrician's class? How about CUNA's got a great deal going on now with their technical charter school, where you can learn nursing and framing and everything. That's fantastic. That needs to be in every school district. Period. End of story. And if legislators really cared about our children in the future, they would focus a tremendous amount of money there. So that is absolutely that's the future of working Idaho, of keeping generational labor here, and business owners and all that, the creative mind and the freedom to get out of school and not have to go directly to a college. So CTE senators and House members, that's where it needs to be. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I think the next time I'll either have a guest. I've had a couple councilmen from the city of Middleton avoiding me like the plague. I've had a couple senators avoiding me like the plague, and not everybody's kind of afraid. But as you look back at my other podcasts and any guests, you'll see it's very laid back. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus at all. We're simply just getting to know who they are. But I've had some of them running, and if they come in, great. If they don't, I'll just continue to move on in this manner. And I'll probably put something together to talk about the different political action committees or the pressure points that are out there kind of driving policy in the state of Idaho and who they are from. You need to know that they're not Idahoan. They're not at all. It's out of state. So anyway, thanks, folks. I appreciate you watching. I'm Scott Brock. This is the Common Sense Conservative, and you can find us on YouTube. You can find the audio version anywhere you find an audio podcast. And so, like us, subscribe to us, and get notified when videos and audio come out. So I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a good day.